says we're live. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to Wisdom for Your Wallet Wednesday. I have some special guests with me, and we are just going to jump into this stream. First of all, I want to introduce you to what I actually have a nickname for her, the negotiator and the prophet of joy. Her name is Lisa Lewis. Lisa, I just want to talk about these people for a minute. Lisa is someone who does not know a stranger. If you are down, she is the type of person who will lift you up merely by saying hello. She's always welcoming, she's always warm, and she's someone who has helped me in terms of anytime I'm having challenges in my career, when I was in school. She's been someone who has been a key person who has given me insight. And not only insight, she's also been one who's given me words to say when I didn't have the articulation. So, Lisa, I just like it if you would just say hello to the people.
Hello, and thank you for the introduction. Welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Lisa. And now let's talk about Miss Francine. Francine is another person who has joy, but it's a bit more subtle. And one of the things that I appreciate about her, I have a nickname for her as well, but I won't say it on this live.
Thank you. Thank you.
To
I
protect
appreciate it.
her privacy. But one of the things that I love about Francine is she is extremely academic. Just as Lisa is, she's extremely intelligent. But whereas Lisa is one who's always giving me insight into a situation, insight into a circumstance, she's able to give recommendations really from her mentorship and her experience. I've noticed that Francine is someone who just talks and then just wisdom flows. Even without me asking for something, I'll be talking and then she will just interject and provide a solution. Or I'll think, oh my goodness, I never even considered that. Let me do what she said. So, Francine, please greet the people on the platform.
Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be with you today.
Thank you. And so, those of you, if you're hearing that noise in the background, we are on a cruise ship. We are on the Carnival Magic, and guess who the person is who put this together? None other than the amazing Lisa Lewis. So, again, we got together in a very unusual way. But again, as someone who I consider the prophet of joy, she brought us together to have fun and to enjoy each other's company. So I guess while we'll wait a minute, unless you guys can hear, I guess you guys can hear me okay. So Lisa, I just want to get started, with a quick question
Francine,
to you, if you don't mind. Why don't you,
mutual.
huh?
There you go. No, I was telling her to
Okay,
mute
great.
her.
Why
Mhm.
don't you, if you'd like to tell the audience what you think that they should know about you and in terms of your career, in terms of finance, in terms of legacy, in terms of fun.
Okay, I'm Lisa Lewis. I'm a wife first, then a mother, then a grandmother, and I'm also a servant of Jesus Christ. Really, reverse it. Jesus Christ is first in all things. Um, I I like the Word of God. I like ministry, but I also own a business destined to travel, which I specialize in cruises. So if you want a decent cruise, you just contact me. I've been in the federal government for over 42 years in the security department. So um, I'm well versed in security. So that's all I want to talk about right now.
That was an absolutely excellent introduction. Thank you so much. Francine, why don't you tell the people something about yourself?
Yes, I am Francine. I have a 30 plus year career in information technology. My passion is regarding, or my greatest passion outside of Jesus Christ is concerning financial literacy. I want our people to become financial literate. so that when they are older and they're in retirement, they don't have to work when they're 70 years old, that they can enjoy the fruits of their labor from all the years that they were gainfully employed.
That's absolutely excellent. And that actually brings us into our first real question for both of you. And Lisa, I'd like you, if you don't mind, I'd like you to answer first every question that I have. But for both of you, the question is, you've been with your companies for over 30 years. That is the age of a fully grown adult. And in this day and age, it's very unusual. I can tell you, as I said, in my industry, as we were talking yesterday, if you've been at a company for 5 years, that's really considered 20 years in my industry. So for you guys to literally be in your companies in the same industry for over 30 years or the same agency, my question is, what mindset allowed you to stay consistent and relevant at your companies and valuable to them for so long, even if you were in different positions? Lisa, would you share?
First, I had decided early on that my job was a part of my assignment. Just like, for instance, I worked in security, been in security for almost 20 years. In security, you know how you have to know how to keep secrets, right? You know how to keep things privately, and so, which is a part of my assignment. Um, as well. But I believe that God has placed me there to represent him well. And in order to represent Christ well, you have to know how to keep secrets, or even just, let's make it plain, keep your mouth closed. What people tell you, you have to be able to hold it privately, because people can't trust you if you just like a refrigerator. In a refrigerator, you always opening the door and taking stuff out. So and then secondly, I didn't assume that because my time in service, I was automatically valuable. Um, I kept updating my skills, listening to feedback, and that's one important thing we have to take in consideration is feedback, because if you're getting it from somebody genuine, the feedback is they see your blind spots that you don't see yourself. So
That is absolutely excellent in terms of what you shared. I appreciate how you said you leaned into the feedback that was given and that helped you in terms of the longevity of your career and also progressing into different positions. Francine, I'd love to hear your response to that question as well.
Yes. I think that I've always been a disciplined person. And once I make a decision to do something, I pretty much stick with it and I see it through. And another thing is I like stability. I'm not a person of much change. But what happened with my career at my company, such that I didn't become bored, is we open new facilities continually every few years. So for me, each opening of a new facility, it was like starting a brand new job, because as I worked in information technology, there was new systems that had to come up. And then also, I think it has to do with my upbringing. As far as I can remember, and as much as I know, both my parents are deceased. However, my father, he worked one job. He worked for one company for as long as I can remember. I don't recall him having two, three, four different positions. He was consistent with one job, and I think I am my father's daughter, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps and continue, his legacy of working at one place and being established in that one place. And also, I had great coworkers too that would always give me advice, that would tell me what I need to do, train me. Um, Learn some things that I didn't necessarily know. When I was a supervisor for a brief period of time, I was they prepared me beforehand to say, you're going to be a supervisor one day, so you need to know A, B, C, and D. And because they took me under their wings and trained me, I think that helped my longevity with my company, that I had ears to hear, ears to listen to the wisdom that they were giving me.
That's absolutely wonderful. And something that you said that was similar to what Lisa said is you said advice and Lisa said feedback. So those are two common themes in terms of your longevity. And you also said new facilities. And yeah, that totally makes it exciting because you have opportunities to learn new things, be in new environments. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Lisa, back to you. And again, this question is for both of you because both of you have been very diligent in terms of investing for retirement. And I really want to drill down on this question because I know that that's something where I have fallen extremely short. And it's not just because I've had intermittent jobs in terms of having several jobs over my career, but it's because something I remember my father actually advised me, in my 20s. He was like, Danae, need to start investing. You need to start investing. And I did, but then I stopped and I started and I stopped because I was like, I'm still young. And it wasn't really until I turned 49 that it hit me. Oh my goodness, 65 is really around the corner. And so now I'm having to hustle. I'm having to like triple time to catch up. Whereas you all understood the importance of investing from a young age for retirement in particular. So I'd love if you could just share that insight and wisdom with the people where you got that mindset and what made you stay consistent.
Well, for me, I work for the federal government, and I always wanted to work at a federal agency that made more money than the regular government. And we call those fiery agencies. But with the agency that I'm with now, they work with finance. And in my early career, I wish I had someone to explain the value of growing old so that you could get the concept that you need to start saving for your retirement. But first, and when I first started with the federal government, that was not on my mindset. I did not want to give up no extra money, even though that the agency was meeting the same amount of money that you were placing. But sometimes when you're not brought up in that type of environment where finances is key, and and growing to the next level, you tend to think of, you're not getting my money. I need my money. But, just like I said, with people coming in your life with feedback and trying to teach you financial literacy and to help you get to the next level, um, that's how I learned and to stay the focus. And when your agency is meeting the amount that you put into your retirement, if you can, you go ahead and just max out, because that's money on the table and you never want to leave any money on the table. And that's just even with training. If your agency gives you training unlimited, take advantage of it, because that's money too. You can look at it that way. So that's why you also have to have people in your life to explain things to you, because I also tell my daughter and my niece and nephew, I wish I had somebody at that particular time when I was like 19, 20. Sometimes you think you know everything, but no, you don't. There's still more to learn just as well as now.
That is absolutely amazing. I so much appreciate that feedback because you also show people that even if you didn't grow up in that environment, you can cultivate the skills. And what you did differently is you took the feedback from those people who were teaching you financially and you implemented it. So now you will be, when it's time, you're going to be fine. Another thing that you said that was really critical, and I love this: never leave any money on the table. That is so critical. I mean, I know that's something that I do. I always match and max out. Like, that's something that I learned, but it's very important because a lot of people, I think at my last company, they did a survey of how many people were matching on the 401k and maxing out, and it was like 25%. So we're talking about 75% at a company that is, well, basically they consider themselves an SaaS company. So these people are very sophisticated, but they weren't doing that. So it just goes to show you, you had the mindset to match and max out. And again, the other thing I love that you brought up is the training, because with training you gain more wisdom, you gain more insight, you gain more revelation, and you can implement that, and not only into your career for longevity, as Francine was talking about different facilities. You had different opportunities in terms of training, so that also kept you not only up in terms of, updates, but also it kept you in terms of being informed, informed for certain progression in your career. So thank you so much for that response. So Francine, I would ask you the same question about, that I asked Lisa, if you would just respond.
Yes. I think since I was young, once I had money in my hands, I always had money in my hands. I always had money. I cannot think of a time of being without money. It may have been a dollar, 50 cents, a quarter, a penny, but I say that to say that I was an avid saver. I have always, as long as I can remember, had a savings account since I was a teenager. And I always put money into savings, even when I was in college and making credit card bills. I still maintained and established a savings so that I would never be broke. And when I became employed full time in my career, I was fortunate enough to sit around a group of men that, again, poured wisdom into me, talking about saving or investing in your 401k, investing in your retirement plan, investing in your future. I think about men like Tommy Dunn, Dave Rice, they both gone home to be with Jesus. And sitting in that environment and even just overhearing conversations if they were not talking to me. And even Alan Bennett, think about him too. These men, they saved money, they invested in their 401ks. And those were things that they told me that I need to do so that as I grew older, I would be able to accumulate more dollars and more cents in my account. So I always invested in my 401k. Initially I may have started out, fresh out of college, maybe just investing 2%, but that wasn't yet up to the company match. But from the first day I was employed, they allowed me to begin investing, maybe 3 months, investing in my 401k, and I always contributed to my 401k. And there were years that I maxed out, and there were years that I did not max out. But I, after my initial year, I would say I always at a minimum got the company match. But more often than not, I went above and beyond the company match because I knew I did not want to be in poverty in retirement. Poverty was not in my mentality. I wanted to make sure that I always had, and that at least at retirement, that I could do whatever it is that I wanted to do.
Another great response, and something again you said similar to Lisa. Lisa said match and max out, and you said at the very least you've matched. Another thing similar to what Lisa said was talking about overhearing. Lisa talked about feedback and teachers on financial literacy, and you talked about men at the company who poured wisdom into you about investing in retirement. And you said even if they weren't talking to you directly, you gleaned and you overheard, and again you implemented. And the other thing that you said that I think is quite unusual, because you're probably the one of the few people I've ever heard say this, that you always had money. Now, I know that doesn't mean you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, because I understand. I know you can talk about that in a second if you want to talk about that. But when you said, even it's 150 or $2, you remember that. But that makes a difference, because if you're used to having even it's a little something as a child, no matter how much you get it, it sets up an expectation for the future. I'm supposed to have money. I'm not supposed to not have money. And so then you live your life out accordingly, where you are expecting not only to have money, but money to be released into you. So I thank you so much, for that wisdom. I think you guys both kind of answered another question that I was going to say, but let me ask you this next question. I would love to hear what is it potentially, because you guys may not even have this, but I'm going to ask just in case. What's a mistake you might have made earlier in your career or even in your life that taught you a priceless financial or professional lessons? Lisa, if you could just go first and answer.
Well, I can just go back to whereas though when you're young and you're not listening to people who are trying to pour wisdom into you. And the mistake was at the beginning of my career, not putting as much money as I should have into my 401k or TSP. So, because I will be a lot further than where I am, but I'm also grateful for where I'm at now. So, I think that that was a mistake. And it's also, even if you don't want to hear what someone says, just listen because it, it makes sense, especially if they're older. It's just like when you have a child, you're trying to tell them, hey, you may have a house, start putting extra on your principal. They don't want to hear that. They just want their money in their pocket. But by you putting that extra money on your principal, you're paying your house off and never, well, for me, a rule for me is never to get any access to the money on your house. You know how, like, like people pull money out, loan against their house. No, that's a no no. That's not even a discussion for me. But just when people have more wisdom to pour into you, just listen, even if you don't do anything with it. And it can take you a long way, and especially during your finance. And sometimes people, they may say, well, I don't have enough money to do X, Y, and Z. You probably have the money, but you just not putting your money in the right places or spending.
Woo! I just said woo when I was on mute because you just addressed what I asset allocation. We may not call it that in terms of just every day, but that's basically what you said. People say they don't have money, but really, how are you allocating your assets? You may have money, like I was talking last week about how some people, or um on the a master class, how some people were mad at me when I did a training once because I said, how much are you spending on your nails? You're telling me you can't go on a vacation, but minimum at that time, and this is like over 10 years ago, these people were spending minimum $80 a month on their nails. That's almost $1,000 a year, which means you're telling me, okay, you can't go on vacation, but what if instead you did your nails yourself? You got the paint from the store, whatever, you learn how to do it, and then you use that rest of the money for your vacation. So it's not that you can't do it, it's just where are you choosing to allocate your money. So I appreciate that. And the other thing that I really appreciate that you said is extremely important is listen. So, for those of you who are listening, one of the reasons why I have these two ladies, besides the introduction that I gave you on this broadcast, is because even in just listening to them in conversation, I have gleaned so much money, not just about retirement. I mean, money, not money yet,
Look at
but
it. It's
my mind
coming.
is money on my mind, money on my mind, money on my mind. But I've gleaned so much information,
Mhm.
not just about money and
Mhm.
investing, but about
Mhm.
life and making wise decisions
Mhm.
and making wise choices. So it's important that you have those people in your circle. So, Francine, what would you want to say?
Yes. I think my money mistake came in terms of, or almost came in terms of tithes and offerings. So I did not grow up in the church as a young person. I became a Christian as I became an adult after I graduated from college. So I can remember in my church at the time, I was, paying some money every Sunday. And I remember one of the stewards, or maybe he was a trustee, but anyway, a steward or a trustee said to me, yeah, I like you, you pay good. And I'm thinking in my mind, yes, I'm giving an offering to the church, but it wasn't my full tithe and offering at the time. And so there, I was thinking about purchasing a vehicle. And it was the Acura 2.2 CLS, and it was a dusty rose color. I remember it because I had it in my mind. I had researched it, and I was going to get this vehicle. And then it just so happens in a period of 2 days. I had three different conversations with three different ministers, and the subject matter that came up was tithes and offerings. And so I took that at the time as a sign from God that I needed to start paying my tithes and my offerings. I was giving an offering, but I wasn't paying my tithes and my offerings. So instead of purchasing that car, I began to give my tithes and I began to give my offerings to the Lord Jesus Christ. And in doing so, that put my finances on ice for a period of time, meaning that was all that I could do was pay my tithes and offerings and take care of myself, take care of my other financial obligations. There was no money for fun. There was no money for cruises at the time. There was no money for anything else. And, that it took a minute, to adjust to that and to be comfortable with that. But from that point forward, which I would say was probably in 1990, 92 or 1993, from that point in my life, I have consistently and regularly given and paid tithes and offerings. And I have not missed giving the Lord what belongs to him. So it almost was a mistake, almost was a big faux pas that I made, but the Lord corrected me. Now, at the time, I may not have attributed that correction to the Lord, but I just knew that I had a conversation with three ministers, and the subject matter was about tithes and offerings, and that spoke to me and said, "Oh, I need to be doing this." So that's my answer.
That is an amazing answer. And I'm going to ask you another question and then I'm going to go back to Lisa. So now that you've talked about the tithe, and I'm so grateful that you got and you knew or you heard those conversations and you know the tithe belongs to the Lord, even though you had to put your basically your money on ice to sacrifice and
Mhm.
make sure you rendered unto him what we owe him, how have you seen giving him his 10%, how have you seen that play out in your life, that it can be little things.
Oh, the blessings of the Lord makes rich and adds no sorrow that comes from that. The Lord, he promised that he would rebuke the devourer if we would give our tithes and offerings to him. So there are things that, happen in my life. It's like, I can give an example. Um, I can remember one time saving $20,000 in interest on a property, because of the wisdom of the Lord said, oh, you need to go finance. So somebody else, this may be a common thing. But when the Lord instructs you to do something and you do it, and that's a massive savings, that I don't have to give out to um, to the banks, that I can keep this money in my pocket and even get the property paid off early. Um, just in so many different ways. It comes back in terms of health. It comes, um, back in terms of favor that people sow into your life. People begin to give things to you that you didn't know you had. And I would say too, what it birthed in me, it also birthed a spirit of generosity in me. And also, I would say there was a period that we did a lot. I did a lot of fasting and I did a lot of praying. And we had our prayer list during our times of fasting and consecration. And I saw things happen in my life, as I sowed, fasting, praying, and giving. That's a threefold cord that is not easily broken. That has been established in my life. So I see um, that I got a raise in one year, I got a promotion, in the same year, and that was a significant amount of increase that I experienced. So, God brings the increase as I obey Him and as I give and as I sow and pay my tithes and pay my offerings. It's the favor of the Lord.
Yes, and a faithful woman shall abound in blessing in the name of Jesus. I like what you said about fasting, praying, giving be a threefold cord that is not easily broken. And of course, we talk about how you sacrifice, but also as a result of rendering your tithe, you've seen blessing, favor, and generosity. So, Lisa, I'm just going to ask you the same question. How have you seen, or even how did you come into understanding about the tithe, and what have you seen as a result?
Well, um, we were taught and taught about giving, taught about the tithes, because the scripture said he will rebuke the devour that come to eat up your money. And if you're not tithing, the devour will eat up your money. And we was taught that, the devour come to put holes in your pocket. The unexpected bills will come, stuff just come to eat up your money. And that's why you don't have enough money to do what you need to do. And I also can recall that I had a significant bill that I had to pay monthly, and I still was tied above that bill. Although I had that large bill, I didn't let that bill be my focus, because I wanted to give God what was his first, because I do know that he will multiply. He would take something small and make it much. Just like, for instance, the woman that gave the two pennies, not two pennies, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And God would make something small to something large, right? And if you can consistently give your tithe, and you may not have what you want, but you also will have what you need. A lot of times people want to function off of what they want opposed to what they need, living beyond their means. Just hold back. It'll come a time, because I said it was a time in my life where I was always saying no, no, no. Then it will become a time when you can say yes, yes, yes to anything that you want. And then a lot of times people, they spend their money on clothes, the facade, the nails and all of that. And still, you can just look at what's that, TikTok and all that. People, they trying to be something that they're really not, because once you go behind the scene, you really see that the person don't even have a pot. Not that, really don't have a you know what I was gonna say. But anyway, they don't have anything. It's just a facade.
That is excellent. Hey, look, we like to have fun here on Wisdom for Your Wallet Wednesday. You guys are already seeing me crack up several times. And when I get with these ladies, sometimes all we do is talk and laugh. So, laughing and the joy of the Lord is our strength. So, joy is welcome. But some things I like that you said, that Francina also said, he will rebuke the devourer for your sake. And you also put your finances on ice like Francine did, because you focus on God and not the bill. So that's really good. And you're right. Again, faithful over little, ruler over much, much more. Both of you brought that out. And then also, you weren't concerned about keeping up with the Joneses like a lot of people are. So we can see, for those of you in response, the tithe is the Lord's, and he will bless you. I mean, it says that. That's one of the only scriptures besides honor your mother and father that comes with a promise. So Malachi 3:10 through 12. If you haven't read it, read it and live by it. Scriptures to live by. Now, I'm just going to ask one more question. I have several more questions, but because you women are so insightful, you've actually kind of answered a lot of them. So I am just going to skip, and we'll do one more. And prayerfully, you guys, I pray that these women will come back, because I've just had such a good time listening to the wisdom and insight that has come forth. But I'm going to ask this one question, and I'll leave you guys with this. And I want Lisa to start. If you could teach if you could teach one young professional, or any professionals, one principle that would give them career or financial longevity, so you get to choose one of the two, what would it be? What would you tell someone who's in their 20s?
Don't keep up with the Jones. Don't live above your means. And the reason why I said that, don't keep up with the Jones, is because you don't know what the Joneses are bringing in. You only know what you have coming in. And don't focus on so much of what other people have. Focus on what you have, because that's the only control that you have. And You just take what you have and work with it. And if you don't know, it's all right not to know something. Ask someone, right? Ask someone to gain wisdom and understanding about your finances. Because and to be truthful, in the color community where I've grown up, there's not much of financial wisdom. And it's all right to ask, and it's all right to not know. But in your not knowing, ask.
Excellent. Excellent. I agree 100%. I agree. The Joneses are broke, like I said on my master class. So why are you trying to keep up with people who are broke just living a facade? Don't live above your means. That's something that I did and I wrote about in my book, Taming the Want Impulse. I shouldn't even say I wasn't even living. I was treading water above my means, and I wish I hadn't done it, but I'm glad I learned from it. And what you said is critical. Focus on what you have and work with it. Just because you're not making, well, none of us are making Amazon money, but even for those who are making multi-millions, I already told the story of the man when I went to the conference, and the man said he paid off $1 million in debt. And we were all so excited and we were clapping our hands. And he said, "Stop. Don't applaud me because I made 6 million a year." And he felt like he was struggling. And I'll never forget, he said, "When I went through my finances, I found out I had 6 gyms memberships. And for what?" And so he quickly got rid of that. But the point is, he wasn't counting his money. He wasn't doing what you said, Lisa, focusing on what you had. And he had an abundance. But he was throwing that million away when he could have been putting it towards his retirement, even though he was already doing well. And he said he felt as if he wasn't making any money. So sometimes when you hear some of these people who are multimillionaires, which is true, a million doesn't go as long as it did. It is technically true because of inflation, but the other thing is, what are you doing with the million? Do you have 6 gym memberships, 5 cars, that you're leasing? You're not even owning. You have to look at your habits. So I would ask Francine, what would you say to the question? What would you teach one principle in terms of career longevity or financial longevity to someone in their 20s?
Um, we all have to, let me see how to put this. We all have an authority figure over our lives, whether we want to have an authority figure or not. And I think that it's important to submit to that authority figure. So, for example, my job, it's important. My number one thing on my job or in my career is that I must do my job. I must do what has been assigned to me to do. I must solve the problems that have been given to me to solve. But beyond that, the unspoken part of my job, as I see it, is I am there to make my manager look good. Whoever is above me, it is my job to not cause them problems. It is my job to solve my problems so that I'm not a problem for them. And if there's something that they don't know that I know, even if I'm in a meeting, I have to find a way to get that information to them. Or even if they say something that is wrong in the meeting, it's not my job to correct them. It's my job to share after the meeting. Here, this is what the information is. I'm not there to embarrass my manager. I'm not there to embarrass my leader, whether we're in professional capacity or whether I'm in church. My job still is to make my leader look good and to submit to their leadership and to submit to their authority. And what I see is people in their 20s or younger, they don't want to submit to an authority figure. They don't want anybody to tell them how to do anything or what to do. They don't want to listen. Even when I think about in terms of financial literacy, there's people that I really want to pour everything that I know, everything that I have learned. I want to share this information with them, but they are not in a mindset or have the mentality or even the consciousness to even want to think about money. They just want to spend, 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 as Lisa talked about the nails, the clothes, the whatever. You can do that too, but you also have to have some principles about financial literacy that you can save. You need to save and invest. If you start when you're in your 20s investing, you don't have to invest a whole lot of money to become a millionaire by the time you retire. Dave Ramsey talks about it all the time. Susie Orman talks about it all the time. I'm talking about it all the time to people that will listen. You just have to be consistent. You have to be disciplined and start what you finish. Once you start doing something, continue it and finish it. Finish the course, stay the course, be consistent, and you will see the money begin to turn over and to grow and to increase. You know, I like addition and multiplication. I don't like subtraction. I don't like division. You know, I'm always calculating something. I'm always looking at my retirement to see how much it grew from day to day. No, I don't make changes to it regularly or often, but I do watch and I do observe and I do see what's going on. And even during, times of financial crisis when things took a nosedive, I didn't switch my habits. I continued to give into my 401k. I continued to give my tithes and my offerings. I was consistent. So I would say be consistent, be diligent, and also recognize that you have an authority figure over your life and submit to that authority.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm so excited. What I would say to the audience is he who has an ear to hear, take heed to what these women are saying. And yeah, Lisa, that's right, has an ear to hear. But one of the things that both of these women emphasized throughout this conversation was the result of the rule of 72. I've talked about it before. Go look it up. But something, Francine, that and another thing you both talked about was being consistent and staying the course no matter what happens. They talked about putting their finances on ice to honor and obey the word of the Lord and give him what is owed to him. Something that Francine focused on in terms of that she just answered that I liked is submitting to leadership, solving problems. Obviously, both of you guys have done this because one of you has been at your company for over 30 years and the other has been working for an agency for over 40 years. 40 years. Can we give it up for 40 years? Yes. 40 years. That's yes. Congratulations to both of you because that's such an accomplishment. But both of you, that means both of you are problem solvers, and that means both of you are making your management look good. Both of you are proving your value, which is why the company will invest in you even in terms of training. And also, I like what you said, get back, if something is happening, get back information in a tactful way to your manager. So both of you have said that. And I think it's just very important, not just for people in their 20s, but I've seen it, with the millennials I've working with because of some of these advancements in technology, because of what Lisa brought up, TikTok, the mindset is different. Whereas I'll say I'm a Gen X, and we're basically talking about Gen X and baby boomers, right? We are quicker to get on the phone. We're quicker to let's have a conversation in person, even if there's something going on at work. We're not just going to message you and just leave it at that. No, because we know the importance of face to face communication. And that's not just with our fellow employees, but as much as possible, it's with our managers. So I like what you brought up about that, making the manager look good, because I see the same. I'm not saying it's the same for all of this younger generation in the 20s, but because how they've been conditioned by technology, by social media, they're very, very intelligent. They're very, very creative. And there's a lot of exciting things that I believe that that generation will bring into the workplace and even into Christendom. But at the same time, there's some things that are tried and true. And one of the things that both of you basically guys alluded to is you better submit to your elders, especially when they have track records of success in what you are looking to accomplish in your life. So that being said, I'm going to end the broadcast right now. Thank you, Lisa Lewis. Thank you, Francine Brooks, for joining me on Wisdom for Your Wallet Wednesday. And audience, for those of you who watched the replay and those of you who are watching now, if you would like to see these women of wisdom on the broadcast again. Please put wisdom, hashtag wisdom in the chat, and I'll see what I can do. I can't promise anything because these women are in high demand, but I'll see what I can do about getting them back on a broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next week for Wisdom for Your Wallet Wednesday. Bye-bye.